So moving along to writing lines, equations of lines that are perpendicular to a different line. So remember we talked about parallel, which is notated as just two lines that are never touching, and parallel, they have the same slope. Now we're talking about perpendicular, which is notated as, usually looks like a little line like this. You'll also sometimes see little boxes in there, and that means intersects at 90 degrees. So that's what your little box stands for, that 90 degrees. And so parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines, which intersect at 90 degrees, have opposite and reciprocal slopes. Opposite, reciprocal. And reciprocal just means flip. Opposite means hopefully what you already know. So if it was negative, it becomes positive. If it was positive, it becomes negative. So some examples, like if I have a slope of a positive 1/3, it's going to become a negative and then flip our equation, which is 3/1, which we would know is a -3 slope. If I have 2/3, we'll call it a -2/3 slope. We'll make it a positive, flip 3/2, and obviously our positive doesn't just stick, but 3/2 is our opposite reciprocal slope to -2/3. If I have a slope of 4, it becomes a negative, and then it's 1/4, because again, remember, all whole numbers have that imaginary 1 over it because we have a rise of 4, run of 1. And then so we need to flip it and make it opposite. One's negative, now becomes positive. So opposite, positive, negative, and then reciprocal, which means flip, is going to be our slope focus for perpendicular lines. And then at that rate, you have a slope and a point to write this line. So again, you're focusing on your slope. The y-intercept of your original line really has nothing to do with your next line. So we have our slope of 2. And so to make it opposite and reciprocal, we're going to flip that 2/1. It was positive, so it's going to become negative. So going -1/2 slope is what we're dealing with here. And we know that goes in the place of b, which is going to go in all of these places for now. And then at the end, it's also going to go down here. So if you would like to go ahead and follow that much through at any point, that's better than doing nothing, stopping, freezing, or losing it. Now we have 10 and 3, so that's x and y. So our x value is a 10 and our y value is a 3. So 3, and then it's going -1/2 of 10, and then we're going to solve it. So -1/2 of 10 is going to be a -5. And then we need to move that 5, and we're going to add it because that's the opposite of that negative or subtraction, so that those guys cancel out and b becomes by itself. So 5. And we end up with 8. So 5 plus 3 gives us 8 for our b. The parts we need, remember again, is our opposite reciprocal slope and our y-intercept. And then we write our line of y equals a -1/2 x plus 8. And that line is indeed perpendicular to y equals 2x, because our slopes are opposite and reciprocal, plus 7. Y-intercepts really mean nothing as far as comparing the two. So just visually looking at their equations or algebraically, it's an opposite and reciprocal slope, and that's all. Like all of these lines perpendicular, and if they're opposite and reciprocal slopes, then your answer would be yes. If they're not, the slopes are not opposite and reciprocal, again, nothing to do with your y-intercepts, then you could say they were not perpendicular. So opposite reciprocal slopes. So looking at number 5, we have a -1/2, which is the opposite of what we just did. So we're going to take this and we're going to flip it. We're going to make it positive because it was negative, and we're going to flip it. It's going to be 2/1. So our new slope is going to be 2. We have an x value and a y value. Our x value is 4, and our y value is a -6. We're going to plug that in. So -6, y equals mx, and our new slope is 2, because we are writing the line that is perpendicular to the line given. If it was parallel, it would be the same. So we got to make sure we do our opposite reciprocal slope. And then our x value is 4, and we're going to solve for b. So 2 times 4 is 8. We need to move that 8 to get b by itself. We're subtracting because it was positive, and that's going to give me a -14 equals b. And the two things you need are your slope and your y-intercept. So 2x plus a -14. And as we discussed, you're probably going to see y equals 2x minus 14, more likely than plus a negative. And this line is perpendicular to y equals a negative 1/2 x plus 3. Again, your y-intercepts are really not of much conversation. It's just checking to make sure your slopes are opposite of each other. So one's positive, one's negative, and then reciprocal. So the fractions are flipped. All right, so if you're feeling froggy, pause it and try number 6. Even though this is a wild fraction of 3/4, you've got it. So a 3/4 slope. So we're going to make it opposite. It's going to be negative. And reciprocal means we're going to flip it. So opposite reciprocal. So our new slope is a negative 4. 4/3. So our new line is negative 4/3 because that is the opposite reciprocal of positive 3/4. And then our x value is 6 and our y value is 2. And then we're going to plug in and solve. So 2 equals a negative 4/3 times 6 plus b. So 6 times 4 is going to give you a negative 24 because that's a negative 4. Divide that by 3. And then we're going to solve. So that's going to give me 6. Right? Whoops, that should be a 3 on the bottom. I'm sorry. 3. So it's going to give me 8. Negative 8. So 2 equals negative 8 plus b. We're going to add 8 to both sides. And that's going to give me 10 as my b value. And what do you need to write your equation besides your slope? Your y-intercept, so it's going to be negative 4/3 plus 10. And that line is perpendicular to y equals 3/4x minus 4. 3/4, negative 4/3. Opposite reciprocal because they're perpendicular, which means they intersect at 90 degrees. I can't say it enough. All right, number 7. If you didn't pause it already, try it now. You've got it. So we have a slope of negative 2, which means it's all over 1, rise of negative 2, run of 1. So we're going to get opposite and reciprocal. So we have a positive 1/2 slope for this guy. X and y, x is 10, y is 0. We're going to plug that in and solve it. So y equals 1/2, which is m, times x plus b. So 0 equals half of 10 is 5. We're going to subtract 5 because we do need b by itself. And b is going to equal that negative 5. Again, you need your slope, your new slope, the opposite reciprocal slope, and then your y-intercept. So it's going to be a 1/2 positive plus a negative 5. Y equals 1/2 x minus 5 is perpendicular to that negative 2x, and that's because negative 2 is the opposite reciprocal of 1/2. Last but not least, negative 2/3 x. So we have negative 2/3. And all we're paying attention to is the slope. We're going to flip it, which is make it 3/2, and it's going to become positive. So our new slope is 3/2. Whoa, hello, 3/2. And then our x value is 0, and our y value is negative 6. Now, hopefully, some of you picked up that when that x value is 0, you already know your y-intercept, because that is the definition of y-intercept. When your x is 0, you're not going left and right at all. You're going straight up or down on the y-axis, and that's where that line is going to cross the y-axis. So y-intercept, starting point, all these fun different terms mean the same thing. Where does the line touch the y-axis? But algebraically, we'll try it. So negative 6 equals our slope of 3/2 times that 0 plus b. Anything times 0 we know is 0. So our y-intercept indeed is negative 6. If you didn't remember that when x is 0, that is the y-intercept. So you are going to use your new slope of opposite reciprocal and your y-intercept of negative 6. So the line perpendicular would be 3/2 x plus a negative 6, or again, as we talked about, 3/2 x minus 6. All right, guys, that's perpendicular line. So one more time, parallel line slope, exactly the same. Perpendicular, opposite, and flip, otherwise known as reciprocal. Keep up the great work, guys.